Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to bring up this article on entrepreneur.com, and this is talking about how Lowe's is going to spend about 250 million to revive America's skilled trades workforce. Now, if some of you have been hearing, there's 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds that are going to be retiring, or you could say maybe the 60s, 70s, because I think a lot of 50, maybe some 60-year-olds, because my dad, he's about six, I think he just turned 68, but he still moves. But he's had some accidents working around the house on the roof and kind of got messed up. I'm not saying like he's bad and he can't, he's not mobile. It's just the fact that he's a man's man. He don't want to talk about that stuff. But I'm grateful that he's finally, going to doctors, to dentists. Because back in the day, he would tell us like, "Oh, we don't do that," or So his mind has changed. Um, Unfortunately, it took him over 60 years to finally look into something like that. But fortunately, he's looking to take care of himself so that he can see us out as much as possible as his children. So that's an awesome thing. Now, this is talking about, because I know there's a lot of talk about gas and oil. I remember some people online was talking about trades, and the thing with the trades, well, I'll say this. When we're talking about technology, because I come from the cybersecurity arena, and I think we have to look at things are changing there. And then we also look at trades, because you still have some people out there. I'm not saying there's a crazy lot, but you have some people out there who just want to do certain type of work, right? Um, and again, it's a mix of men and women. But again, I don't like the whole gender thing when it comes to people who just want to work and want to gain skills, because I don't think it's, oh well, a woman belongs in the home or any of that stuff. I just don't think that way. I think it causes issues, and it makes some women, in my opinion, I'm not saying you're not valuable as a human being and who you are, depending on how you act, because sometimes I don't even care. I'm not gonna lie. I don't care about you like that. But valuable in the way where you have a purpose, you're seeing out that purpose, and you are contributing to society. So every human being, how I think of it, is not about just saying, "Oh, we have a family." I know there's some people promoting that online, but they still have not structured families in a way or understand the idea of families. I know some people who just get into these relationships just to prove stuff to their friends or their boys, or using it as a way to talk about other people, and what they don't have. But as we see, we're in a different day and age where I think it's important for women, especially, to get some type of skills. Do not rely on your husband, no matter what he's saying. Even if you're a woman that says, "Hey, I'm a stay-at-home mom," that's fine. But you still need to find something to do for yourself. And I don't even know why women are promoting women being taken care of by their man in the manner of saying that. And again, I don't think some of these women think they're better than other women. I think some women may think they're better than other women, and saying things like that. But I just think some of those women may not understand. Here in America, women have fought for a lot of stuff for their own autonomy. And it's unfortunate you have a lot of unintellectual people online that are misrepresenting what things actually are. Because the goal for some of these people are to shrink you as a human being. Forget about being a woman or a man. Just their goal is to shrink you because they need to uplift or validate themselves. So again, this is not for every woman. I'm not saying every woman needs to get a hammer or do any of that. But, some of us women, we were raised by our dads and we liked what he did. It inspired us, it gave us toughness. Some men out there with daughters will tell you, they, even if their sons weren't doing certain things or if they didn't have sons, they just raised their daughters. And daughters are very appreciative of their dad, especially when they're young, you know. And learn from him a lot. So, I'm one of those daughters, so, I'll just say this, women like myself, we don't look, we may not look at all men the same. You can't just come talking to me as a man and believe you're ready to some game and I know you don't have no skill, right? Like, I'm not interested in those type of men. I like men who do work. And because the way I grew up, I understood how our family was saving money because my dad had the skills to fix cars. He had the skills to fix the roof. He built extra rooms in our house, and he did that as a one-man team mostly. Electrical wiring in the house. I mean, he did it from ground up. So he did all of that. He knows how to garden. He does all of that stuff. So, and I'm a kid. I grew up a kid who I watched that stuff, and I'm multi-talented, but sometimes it's just about focusing on one thing, right? But I just wanted to read this article with you guys just so that we can talk about the moves that are happening, data centers, housing, because that's an issue that's been going on that now, a look at more housing is upon us. So you're going to have a lot of moving, a lot of jobs are going to be open. And again, you have some people that are, excuse me, over 60 that are looking to retire because they want to just chill. They want to go fishing. They want to travel the world with their wives. You got men out here who paid for their kids to go to school and be educated. You got some men that are waiting for their sons and daughters to take over their businesses and so they can relax. And I get it. And I'm all for you 60 plus people relaxing, like just saying, yo, I'm ready to chill out, right? But I think also some of you guys should be looking at how can I be a mentor? I know people like to throw around this word coaching, but I think that's a newer term that people framed in a way to promote this whole coaching industry. I think it's about old school, a mentor and an apprentice. You have your apprenticeship programs, you have your mentors, or your masters or your sifus, whatever you want to call them in that name. Who are people you can talk to, you can bounce ideas off, you can consult with them for different things. Because, and I'll just speak for me, I don't need a coach. I know what to do. Sometimes it's just talking to that mentor about your frustrations or that mentor has someone who's actually been through it, right? Who's actually someone who you're looking to have a similar, I don't want to say lifestyle, but a similar career style, because your lifestyle may be a little bit different. Like, for example, working in the IT field, before I got into cyber, it was good to hear people who told me about money and how not to buy certain cars or using cash or teaching me about servers or, and this is just their own thing. And I look to them as mentors, as people that, hey, if I got an issue or I'm troubleshooting and I just really can't get it, can they help me think about this in a different way? And again, they're specific mentors and people you want to look at as saying, they're going to guide you in the best way possible. So let's go ahead and read this article because again, this is about Lowe's is spending 250 million to revive America's skilled trades workforce, and here's why. So again, talking about apprenticeships and mentors, people that are leaving. You got the baby boomer class that are leaving. So now you're going to have a lot more jobs open, meaning women and men, young women and men. If you're, because I'm about to be 40, I'm still in my 30s, but I'm about to be 40 soon. But, even 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds can do this work, right? and give yourself a good 10 years in the industry and see where you end up, right? But I think the main thing is getting some financial literacy so that you won't end up hurting yourself, especially when you get older, right? So let's look at this. Um, the home improvement company is investing heavily in skilled trades like plumbing, carpentry, and electrical work. So here's the key takeaways. Lowe's is committing 250 million over several years to expand training for electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and other skilled trades. The funds flow into programs like tuition-free training. CEO Marvin Ellison frames the trades as even more important in the near future, arguing that hands-on roles are resilient to AI and automation. Now, I will say here, again, I'm an engineer, I'm a thinker, and there's a lot like me. I don't think it's going to happen in the next few years, but I'm going to guarantee you, people like me or who think like me, we're going to find out or figure out, because that's just how our minds work. How can we get that hammer to put them nails in without having a human to do it? Because um, you don't want to work, and again, let's go back to the healthcare industry, what I talked about with that AI companion. If there's a shortage in workers, this is where AI is going to come in, right? So there's been shortages that they've been talking about in the construction industry too, and those shortages are because most of those boomers, they're about to retire, and you have people online talk just yapping all day, and they're actually not even in doing this because they wouldn't even be online if they were actually working on their craft like that. Maybe they'll just come in to check in, and that's me. I used to be online, but I was still working. I was able to work and do both. But now it's more like, well, I'm getting more excited about building again, and I may come on here to have it as background noise or whatever. But I'm focused on the future here on out, right? Deciding, do I want to have children? Will I end up marrying someone that understands what I want in a family, what I'm looking for as a husband and as someone who's going to father my children. I look at things like that. And that's why I didn't have children pretty young, regardless of what people say. Like, I really wasn't trying to be nobody's baby mama. I don't care what no one say. Like, that's not the life for me. A lot of people had some issues. And again, some of these people I wasn't going for because they had no skills. I come from a home where a father has a skill, and some of these dudes just didn't have any of that. So to me, you weren't even showing me your value. And again, women, if you're out there, these are things you should be looking at as a woman. A man who's going to be committed to you because he has skills, he has a craft to focus on, he's out here working his butt off. Even women, if you're out here, same thing. Your man has to be the same thing. Like, you know what, she out here doing her thing, she's working, she's contributing to the household, because that's what is about at the end of the day. It's about both of y'all paychecks got to pay for that house, right? Pay for them cars. So some people out here that's still yapping about who makes the most money, and you know all of that other crap. It's crazy. I even came across this man talking about living off of one income. No, sir. You see what the hell is going on? What the hell has been going on since millennials have been born? Are you out of your freaking mind? Like, grow up. Grow up. If your wife wants to work, let her work. If she doesn't, and you guys are in an area where you don't need all of that, I'm not saying you got to be millionaires or anything like that, but you got to grow up. At some point, you got to start thinking better than what you're thinking. So let's go ahead and deeper into this article. It's not too long here, but I'm trying to get through it as much as possible. It says, as AI shakes up white collar work, skilled trades are starting to look like the smarter bet for steady, high paying work, and Lowe's is leaning into that future. The home improvement company recently told Fortune that its foundation plans to invest 250 million over the next decade to train 250,000 skilled trades professionals in the US in fields such as plumbing, carpentry, and electrical work. The money flows through Lowe's Foundation into community colleges and nonprofits, funding tuition-free training, credentials, and modern equipment. The company had previously committed more than 50 million to nonprofits and community college programs, but CEO Marvin Ellison said that evolving workforce dynamics have made higher investments in US skilled trade education even more critical and timely. And it is, guys. I'm telling you, it's so critical and timely because the older generation is ready to check out. They're ready to get them deuces throwing and go hit up them beaches, getting their Winnebagos. They're ready to relax, okay? And I don't blame them. They put in their time. They put in their time, okay? It says we're a company that believes strongly in the future of AI, but in a world where administrative and analytical occupations are going to be increasingly dominated with the acceleration of AI, we think the skilled trades initiative is going to be even more important here in the near future. And he knows it. It's true. It is true. He pointed out that AI has its limits. It can code, draft emails, and crunch numbers, but it can't show up to your door to fix a leaky pipe. Now, again, the military have the remote control cars. You have drones. We have micro cameras. We have so many different things in technology that you don't believe someone with an engineering mind, similar to mine, can think of how to create a robot to do that. You got them robot dogs, right? You got food delivery that's using robots in the streets. You got Waymo. I'm not saying they're 1,000% perfect, but you got to understand what's happening, what's being built. In China, you got them already building humanoid robots and racing them around a track. Okay, so robotics is coming to machinery. It's going to come. Again, we're not saying it may not come in the next decade, but again, if you have a lot of people bringing it will come in the next decade. Okay, so I'm just telling you, this is probably a good time to just get your career going, um, and seeing how this turns out for you, right? Because it's just good to have a skill. To be honest, it just really feels good to have a skill and be somebody who has nothing going on, at all. And that's the difference between me and a lot of people who are like me. We actually got skills, that a lot of people who just yap, bully, and online, they don't really have nothing going on for them. They don't have any skills but talking and stealing other people's stuff, right? So let's continue here. It says, as powerful as AI will become, AI can't climb a ladder to change the batteries in your smoke detector, Ellison said. It can't change your furnace filter. It can't clean your dryer vent. It can't repair a hole in your roof. Now, when I think of this, again, I came across the Jetsons because I grew up in the 90s, born in, mid to late 80s, but grew up in the 90s. And I remember the Jetsons. So again, our minds were already, you got to understand this as humans, we're already thinking of the future in our dreams, in our ideas, and all of that. We're already thinking about the future. Okay. So yeah, this probably can't happen right now, but it's a high possibility that someone will figure it out, or some people will figure it out. We just went to the moon, people. We went to the moon. Come on now. We've been going to space for a long time. You think somebody won't figure stuff like this out for a homeowner? We have AI companions, people. Let's be a little bit more, thoughtful, and appreciate human ingenuity. Okay, the urgency for skilled trades is real. The U.S. is facing a serious labor shortage, and that's what's happening. The Associated Builders and Contractors projects that the U.S. will need about 350,000 more construction workers just to meet the demand in 2026, and that shortfall could jump to 456,000 by 2027. Electricians, plumbers, and carpenters are similarly all in short supply, meaning too many people are online talking about their YouTube pages and their podcasts. And it's like, again, I don't even watch a lot of that stuff. I'm not going to lie, because it's nothing that's feeding my brain anything but just gossip and talking about the same things all day. But if you're not running these companies or thinking about running these companies, getting some young men and women, um, to establish skills under actual skills that are needed. We don't need 1,000 podcasts every day coming online. I'm sorry, we don't. Especially if they're not. I don't see them as valuable to my life. I'm not gonna lie. So, this is telling you here's an opportunity. Here's an actual opportunity, not just talking about trades and just because you want to, play bully to women, but talking about them to say, yo, this is something that I can do to feel good about because I can actually teach my children. I can pass this down. These are skills that you pass down to your children, people. Like, let's be real. And again, this is just America. So learning these skills means you can go anywhere in the world. You just got to get in, take your time, get detailed as possible, put in those 10,000 hours and go from there. Okay. So even though pay is climbing, the pipeline of new talent isn't keeping up with demand. Different paths to achieve the American dream. So for Ellison, the changing workforce isn't just a business issue, it's personal. As he told Fortune, he grew up in Brownsville, Tennessee, a small town northeast of Memphis, where the message was always the same: go to college if you want to achieve the American dream. And this is true. And now, again, I'll say some of those boomers, Gen X, they're the ones who told us that because you guys got to understand, they come from a time, you know, again, some people want to talk about education and all that, and I'm just talking to black people here specifically. Gen X and boomers come from a time where women, it was against the law for women to be educated. It was against the law for black people to have education. Versus brown issues that were happening, segregations in schools. You know what I'm saying? Like, you had these things actually happening in their time. So when they think about their children and their generations, their grandchildren, they wanted you to go because they felt that was the best for you. So we can't look at them and think, well, he just told us to go to college, because that's what they come from. Because they come from a different time where to be smarter means you had better opportunity, because everyone who appeared to be smarter running these corporations and stuff were educated. Or when you're talking about nursing and all that, even though we know some of this was discrimination and hating all around, people who probably claim that they're some religious sect, Christianity, Muslim, whatever the hell you want to act like you are. You're the type of people that were keeping people out. And that's why also I think there's a shortage. And also why I'm like, why are we bringing in immigrants when you have high school age children that should be getting these skills in high school? They should already be starting there, right? That's just my opinion. They should already start from there, and maybe make it a requirement or an elective, depending on your grade point average. So, hey, you can go to these classes depending on if you keep up 3.0. Make it a reward as well, because they have to see it that way, right? So Ellison followed the conventional wisdom, earning a business degree from University of Memphis and an MBA from Emory University. His brother chose a different path, going to vocational school and building a career as a welder, which is another area. This is another good one right here. I'm following this black man who's a welder, and man, he's awesome. He's very, very awesome on YouTube. So, this is another great area to look into, because you can do underwater welding. This is still a need. It's still a need, people, regardless of what's going on. And again, worldwide. So, learn it here in America, but understand these skills can go far worldwide. Ellison told Fortune that for too long, jobs like his brother's have been seen as second tier compared to white collar careers. I personally would say yes and no, because again, you have a lot of men who are in these fields, and there's women. I'm not going to say there's no women, but you have them in these fields, and they make good money. It's not promoted as much as it probably used to be back then. So it changed. That's all that happened, was the marketing changed up. It says there's not that one option is better or worse. It's all about that there are different paths to trying to obtain prosperity. And we all, me included, need to do a better job of presenting skilled trades as rewarding, viable careers, not just black backup plans, he told the outlet. This is so true. You have too many young people. Again, I'm about to be 40, but I'm still, they still look at older people look at me like I'm still young, and I do. I don't feel none of that at all. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but even people younger than me, right? Like my younger brother, they have to see these fields as something more than wanting to get on a podcast because it's Joe Budden, a podcast because it's Lil Wayne or Ti. They got to see careers that are rewarding. Not entertainment. You can't be looking at that or just trucking because you think it's just the easiest thing to do to just drive around and carry some loads and drop off those loads. I'm not saying it's a super easy job, but when I think of trucking, I think of having a bus driver moving people. That's sensitive. That's sensitive. I'm not saying they're on the same exact level, but I'm just understand. Again, this channel is not for people who don't think like me, so it's not for you. But people who do, these loads, they can compare. You can compare them to a bus full of people or a bus full of children where you have to be safe. You have to watch out for traffic. You're traveling. So some of these guys don't even take off the loads or load up their trucks. They're just the drivers, right? Nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is you have other skilled trades that are very rewarding. And some people aren't even getting in them because you do have to test. You have to learn. You have to do all that stuff just as the same. So trades are a means to create meaningful wealth and earn a very dignified living with a lot less debt. Ellison explained. According to the Education Data Initiative, the average cost to attend a 4-year college is $38,271 per year. Now, after I graduated, a few years after I graduated, the tuition costs were just rising. So, again, I know people talk about gas and oil and stuff. Costs have been rising in almost every freaking sector. Okay, so this is why tuition costs continue to rise. And again, if you're not someone who's a thinker and who understands complexities of the economy, and one thing happening and why another thing and here's a reaction from it, you're gonna always be online yapping, right? So this says, compared to the average cost of a trade school education, which works out to be $33,000 total. Now, again, depending on where you go, depending on what you join, again, if you're around some boomers or Gen X who still have the skills, great ways to pick up the skill and learn it, sometimes for free, because sometimes they just want to teach, right? They just want to give you their knowledge, their wisdom about this field. And those are other ways to help you to manage your money and not spend crazy amounts. Now, I do still think school is important, especially if you're going to be a high schooler. I think you still need to take school seriously, or you don't think things are needed for this and things are needed for that. Depending on which you're trying to rise in different areas of construction or whatever it is, you may be dealing with those white collar people. There still are going to be those white collar people running most of those construction projects, managing them, safety. You're going to still have those white collar, to me, they're white collar positions running it because, you didn't want to do some math, I guess, or learn a little bit of physics, right? So last but not least, it says here, don't succumb to peer pressure that one career is better, more impressive, or more valuable than another. Ellison said, choose your career path, not from pressure and around what you think is the most valuable career or most prestigious, but choose it based on your natural interest and your skill set. So again, this is what's happening. Lowe's is looking to invest 250 million into reviving America's skilled trades. Again, people may not like Trump. I don't agree with everything Trump does. I'm looking at it from a situational standpoint of where are the opportunities based on the policy changes, based on what's going on. And this is what's happening in the back end. And again, there's a shortage So you, if you're deciding to get into the field, you need to look into how can I gain a skill to better my life. Thank you guys. Please like, share, and subscribe.